Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso at SABC3, and it's time for some movie talk, and we have some enticing trailers for you with somebody who is very, very au fait with every single movie that comes out. He is the authority, in my opinion, when it comes to movies of any sort, foreign, local. This is Baby Sebastian.
No pressure.
Yes,
sure.
I have to, no, but you always bring it, and I think today you brought some really, really beautiful movies to the table, and I love movies that intrigue me on an emotional level, movies that delve into issues that have not really been dealt with on the public space, and you know, and let's start with the first one, The Reason I Jump.
So there are a trillion things that I feel like I need to know more about.
Yeah.
And one of them is autism. Oh, thanks. So you're just admitting that I'm a stupid person.
No, I
yes,
agree with you.
So it is a true story. I'm glad that you watched the trailer before. You can tell us a bit about what gripped you about it in a
Absolutely.
bit. But the story is, it's a memoir of a guy. His name is Naoki Higashida. And at age 13 wrote this book, The Reason I Jump. And he is what is referred to as a non-speaking autistic person. And obviously autism is this huge, like, 3D spectrum that I don't know way enough about, but I'm sure that this movie is going to give me better insight. So no speaking at all. And he says at the very start of the book, like, you cannot understand the frustration of it being Mother's Day and you not being able to say thank you.
Yes.
So to write this, pointed every letter of the alphabet to write the entire book. And the movie then tries to, as we were discussing earlier, try to help you see through the eyes of what it must feel like to say whether struggle or just see the world differently, because it's not all about the pain of having autism. Well, what is it that stood out for you when you checked this out for the first time?
Well, I mean, I have a brother who's Down syndrome, and I've always been telling my pops that he communicates differently. You have to understand what the communication platform is, because we get very pompous on our communicative platforms, and we think, you know, the way you communicate is I need to look at you, show you body language, and then give you words. But I think that when you understand these things like autism and people who are on the spectrum, you need to understand that you need to get down, in fact, get up to a level of communication.
Well, yeah, because, and I think while that stuff is fantastic, that it gives you and I a better chance at experiencing our own Cole and JP empathy for other living things.
Absolutely.
It also just helps autistic people and people with autism and within the spectrum being like, that's me. That is what it feels like. Seriously. So we, as what they refer to generally as neurotypical people, which is what is neurotypical, if so many people have depression, if so many people have anxiety, if so many people have autism, whatever, who's normal in inverted commas, can probably benefit from this. And especially, you know, you refer to your dad, parents, seeing like that person's way is different, and we've made a world where they're bottlenecked into thinking what we think is the right way of communicating. But the dude wrote a book. I think this is like his 15th book, and I don't need to tell you that, oh, this person deserves to live because they're a writer. They deserve to live and express themselves just because they're human, and The Reason I Jump is a beautiful expression by the looks of things.
I think it's going to be a gorgeous movie. Let's move swiftly on to Apples, which is a very curious movie, and the lead character sounds like somebody who I'm going to connect with, and actually just at every single turn you want to know what's next and what's next. So Apples. It's,
okay, well, I hope that you remember him after this movie, because the story is about amnesia. And again, so I've themed this entire segment about like mental
I can tell.
Stuff like that, yes. Thank you for noticing.
Anytime.
My efforts, finally someone understands my communication. So Apples is Greece's official submission to the Oscars for consideration in 2021. And it is this kind of story that, like I was telling you, if you enjoyed Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or if you enjoyed The Truman Show, and the story, because this isn't a documentary, previous one was, is about a pandemic that goes global, and one of the symptoms of it is that people get amnesia. So this guy's in an institute where they go, look, we're gonna have to write off the past. No one's claimed you. We don't know who your family is. So let's just make a new you. And he, for example, forgets that he hates apples, but he eats them now all of a sudden. And love intervenes in all of this, and I think someone who is also suffering the symptoms of this pandemic is the love interest, and they together lean on each other and try to just reinvent the world for themselves. I think after 2020, there's going to be a lot of amnesia of how we got here. What a weird time this is, and how a lot of things are going to have to force to change, and how we're going to have to leave the past behind. Maybe Apples is going to help people therapeutize themselves for the trauma that we've been through. It looks interesting enough, yeah.
And you know, on your narrative of humanity when it comes to autism, you're talking about amnesia. Now let's get into a director who seems to have some sort of latent thing going on that we'll find in this movie called Being a Human Person.
Yes. So Being a Human Person is about Roy Andersson, and he's a Swedish filmmaker who has done this for 50 years. These sort of DIY films. Everything we see is, I was just talking to Grant about Michael Bay and everything's Transformers or X-Men or whatever, blah, blah. Okay, X-Men's one of the worst, I mean Avengers. But, you know, people are still making DIY films on their own terms, and he finally was recognized, Roy Andersson, this DIY filmmaker, for his strange style of doing things, recognized by the Venice Film Festival, and he's a Cannes winner, Cannes Film Award winner, this small movie. And so after 50 years of finally getting noticed, he has all this pressure of doing his last movie. And he is a man who is our dad's age, who is now confronting the idea of inevitability, whether that's retirement, whether that's life just passing you by, and he's questioning whether his art is an expression of his own things he's just not been dealing with. We were talking about in the trailer, you see that he struggles with alcoholism.
Yes.
And so it's this great story about, you know, are people who make movies, is each movie like a cry for help? Has this person ever confronted, like, you know, his difficulties, or just tried to exhibit to you as the public, like, what they're going through? So maybe this gives you a bit more empathy to, like, filmmakers, and especially people who are going through this difficulty of passing on in their career into this new phase of things. That Being a Human Person looks fascinating as well.
It does indeed, and I think I love the fact you gave us a collection of movies that will inspire empathy in us when you go and watch them eventually. So Reason I Jump, Apple's Being a Human Person, those are the first three. More to come with JP Sebastian a little later, and some of the movies you'll love, foreign language films that are going to entice you and intrigue you. But for now, entice and intrigue when it comes to hair and makeup with Zoe.